The Podcaster's Guide to the Conspiracy, featuring Josh Edison and M. Dentith.
Hello and welcome to the Podcaster's Guide to the Conspiracy in Auckland, New Zealand. I am Josh Edison, and in Zhuhai, China, who you going to call? It's Associate Professor M. R.X. Dentith.
I ain't afraid of no academic article.
Good. And that's why we're going to give you a call.
Precisely. Oh, the writing I've been doing recently, Joshua. The writing I have been doing. Doing writing? I have. Yes, do. Right.
Just in general, or for a specific academic purpose?
Well, mostly for specific academic purposes. So I've been reworking the paper I gave at Kent, and I've just finished a co-authored piece with Milena Sapos for the Social Epistemology Review and Reply Collective, which when it gets published, we will talk about on the podcast, because I think it's an interesting little debate going on there. And I've also been working on two other papers, one with Marty Orr, one with Curtis Hagen. So there's been lots and lots of exciting writing going on there, but most of it I want to keep kind of under wraps because it still has to go through the whole peer review process.
But exciting writing at least has the benefit of rhyming, so therefore it must be good.
Well, that is my rationale.
Well, I guess that discharges our duty of talking about what you've been up to in the past fortnight academically. So maybe we should shoot straight into the topic of this episode, which is, I guess, this is a bit back to the conspiracy one. We are
so I was thinking about this
new topic
just before. So we're doing a news update for a story we've never covered, and then using that news update for a story we never covered to talk about stories we have covered, which themselves have some updates. So
obviously,
it's just one of those, as Cole Porter would say, it's just one of those things.
Right. Well, in that case, we'll play some sort of a sting now.
I think we will play the back to the conspiracy sting, but it's a loosely back to the conspiracy news update news episode about old news made new.
Makes perfect sense to me.
Buckle up. We're going back to the conspiracy.
So, if you were listening last episode, we said we had a bit of news, and then we thought, actually, why don't we save this bit of news for the next episode, because we can talk about a whole bunch of stuff based upon it. And now it is that next episode, and so now we are going to talk about it, because a couple of weeks ago, a friend of the podcast, Hayden, sent me a link to a news article which showed that the golden owl has been found.
Yes, this is not false news. This is not fake.
70s film, but yeah,
the golden owl has been located. Now, if that is your KGB activation phrase, be aware the meeting is in the park at 11:03 p.m. Not 11:02, not 11:04, 11:03 p.m. The meeting will be in the park, and the doves roost at midnight.
Right. But if you're not a KGB agent, then you might have heard of the famous buried golden owl hidden in a treasure hunt in France.
Yeah, and this is one of these things, as we're going to talk about with respect to other stories, there was kind of a craze in the late 80s and early 90s for people to bury treasure and then leave clues to how it can be found.
In this case, the clues were in a French book published in 1993 by a man called Max Valentin, or not, as we'll see. The book is called Sur la trace de la chouette d'or, or On the Trail of the Golden Owl. And it was a book that had an illustrated book that had, I think, 11 clues, and then there was a 12th clue which would become apparent after you got the 11 or something like that, to the location of a treasure. So what they made this golden owl. It's a owl made out of gold and silver, diamond encrusted, worth, apparently in 1993, it was estimated to be worth 150,000 euros. Wikipedia said it's worth around 231,000 now, but your inflation calculator begs to differ.
Well, yes. So Inflation is inflation. The price of gold is the price of gold. So, golden owl that was worth 150,000 euros in 1993 is said to be worth around about 231,000 euros now. According to inflation, 150,000 euros in 1993 is the equivalent of 327,302 and 8 euro cents in present day monies, which means that gold has not kept up with inflation. And I find this amusing because people like Alex Jones, who are saying you should always be putting your money in gold and not in banks, this is bad investment advice. Gold is not keeping up with inflation. Your gold is worth less now than it was 10 or 20 years ago.
Well, let that be a lesson.
The podcaster's guide to the conspiracy, our financial advice is do not invest in gold.
No, invest in golden
But if
owl
you do own gold,
specifically.
do send it to the podcaster's guide to the conspiracy, because as gold is a bad investment, we will take care of that gold for you, as in we will take it off your hand because you will give us legal ownership of that gold, and we will take your worthless gold and we will just keep it.
We will jump on that grenade for you.
You don't need that gold. We are willing to take that gold off of you. So please do send all of your gold and your parents' gold and your children's gold to the podcaster's guide to the conspiracy. We will take that gold off your hand, and that one hand, not both, just one hand, off your hand. That is a no gold back guarantee.
Damn right. But if you don't have any gold, then maybe you should have been.
And if you don't have any gold, get some gold to send it to us.
Yeah, which you could have done by hunting for this golden owl, but you're too late now. No, so the golden owl existed. It wasn't actually buried in a secret location. It was kept by the author, who had this big photograph of here's me with this owl, which you can win if you solve my riddles 3 or 11 or whatever it was. So there was a bronze replica of the owl had been buried somewhere in France, and by solving all of these riddles, you would find the exact location of it. And so this, first of all, we should probably justify talking about this in a podcast that is normally about conspiracy theories by pointing out that there were several people in on this, so it does, I guess, count as a conspiracy.
Yeah, because there's the author and then there's the artist, and also the artist turns out to be the sculptor. So Max Valentine, who is a pseudonym, we'll get into that in a minute, wrote the riddles. Michel Becker was the artist who provided the art that goes along with the riddles, because you find with these kind of treasure hunts, the images are meant to give evidence for the riddles, and the riddles are meant to be aided by the evidence of the images. And Becker also turned out to be a sculptor of metals, so also made the gaudy owl to go along with the images and the text.
So, yes, Monsieur Valentin was actually a pseudonym of a communications expert by the name of Regis Hauser. Now, he died in 2009.
Is he related to Cole Hauser?
Or Wings Hauser. His name was Wings Hauser.
Is this the Hauser trilogy here?
We can only hope, yeah. But unfortunately,
there's a deep cut that only very few listeners will ever get.
Fans of 90s action films, yes. But no,
and the great film Paparazzi.
But so when Mr. Valentin or Mr. Hauser died in 2009, then Michel Becker, the illustrator and sculptor, he sort of took over the hunt, and there was apparently a bit of a legal battle over the whole thing, whether control of the role and control of the golden owl should have gone to him. I don't know if Mr. Hauser's relatives thought they should have got it or something like that. But
I think
took
it was
a
a dispute over the literary estate, because the book is attributed to Max Valentine. I think the family took it that Max Valentine was Regis Hauser. I think Michel Becker took it, well, Max Valentine is a pseudonym. It refers to both the writer and the artist here. So, of course, I should take over the estate. I think what is actually interesting about this, so in the note it says in 2011, Becker had managed to claim ownership of the owl. According to the legal documents, he only actually got proper legal authority over the book in 2021 when the book
Yes.
was reissued.
Yes, so in 2011, he basically just made the claim, said, "Yep, no, it falls to me. I have the owl." Now, this became particularly controversial because he claimed he was going to sell it at one point, and even before ownership of it had been fully established, the court said, "No, even if you do own it, you cannot sell it because technically it belongs to whoever solves the riddle." There'd been an earlier thing as well, I think, a few years earlier, the publisher of the original book had gone under or something, and they tried to claim that that they wanted to sell the owl for their own good. But all of these things managed to be sorted out without the owl getting transferred in ownership to anyone else. So in 2021, Mr. Becker finally was officially made the what would you call it, administrator of the treasure hunt.
No, the keeper of the owl.
The keeper of the owl. So
This is going to be one of those words, if we keep on saying it, owl is going to lose all meaning whatsoever.
As well it should. Damn owls! Who do they think they are? But the solution, the location of the buried owl, before Mr. Valentin's death, he had written the location of the owl and placed it in a sealed envelope. And once Mr. Becker actually, the rulings went in his favour, he then opened it, found out the location of the owl, went and dug it up to make sure it was still actually there. There was a little bit of...
Yeah, which is interesting because it wasn't. So when he went to dig up the owl, he discovered that the bronze owl that he had made wasn't there, and there was a rusty iron bird, and none of the sources mention which species this bird was, so we have to assume it wasn't an owl, otherwise to say a rusty iron owl was in its place. And so Becker created a brand new bronze owl to put in the place of where the old bronze owl was meant to be. And there is an unanswered question here. What happened to the original owl? Was it a case that at some point Regis went to the location where the owl was meant to be located to check that it was there, dug in the location, discovered it wasn't there, and then has someone found the owl and they haven't got in contact with me? Or was the owl just dug up accidentally, not related to the treasure hunt? But whatever the case, at some point it is assumed that Hauser put an iron bird in the owl's place and no one knows why.
But nevertheless, there was then a bronze owl in the proper place, and the search could resume. And as you would probably expect, there was sort of a online community of owl hunters. They had a nickname for themselves, which I don't think I wrote down. It was probably something cute and a bit silly. And people would pore over the clues. There was one of the articles I read about this linked to, you can find a PDF of the whole thing on this website, and I went to the website and it said, yeah, we don't actually host that PDF anymore. Sorry, they asked us to take it down. But I mean, if you go on Wikipedia, the Wikipedia page for the Hunt for the Golden Owl lists, I think, all of the riddles and how they have or have not been solved officially. But it turns out...
Can we get some examples?
Well, go.
So I've got an example here of a riddle which has been solved, and a riddle that, if it has been solved, the answer has not been made public. So here is our riddle solved. Opening. My first half of the first age precedes my second and third, seeking their way. My fourth is inspired, my fifth is enraged, but without protest follows my fourth and the Roman Alpha. My sixth is hidden at the limit of eternity. My seventh, standing, spits his venom. To find my all, just be wise, because the truth in truth will not be a Devon's affair. Josh, what does that mean?
Well, I mean, first of all, it would have been in French originally, so it's been translated for a starter. But basically, we're talking about my first, second, and third. Obviously, this is it's spelling out a word, and you're having to figure out what each of these letters are based on the clues. And it basically, so my first half of the first age refers to the word baby, and so the first of that is B. And it sort of it goes on and on and on. It ends up Bourges, which is the French city of Bourges. So the very first riddle, when people solved that, gave them a starting point of at least the city in France, that this was somewhere near.
Although it turns out an owl's a small thing compared to a city.
It is.
It's very
And
easy to hide an owl in a city. I've hidden several owls in Auckland alone.
But you'll notice that it gives all the letters, the first to the seventh letter, and then has the next little bit, to find my all just to be wise, because the truth and truth will not be a Devon's affair. Apparently, all of the riddles have a little extra bit that isn't specifically needed to solve that riddle, but apparently once you have all 11, the extra bits from each of those 11 riddles then let you solve the final one or something like that.
So essentially those extra bits make up the 12th riddle. Now here's an unsolved one.
First step, wherever you want, by the Ross and the coachman, but where you have to, by the compass and the foot.
Now this one is interesting because, according to Hauser, this was the second most important riddle of the game, and yet the owl has been found, but no one seems to know what it means.
Well, yes, presumably the people who did actually solve the riddle, or did find it and have solved everything, know, but they haven't released it yet. So apparently, in order to actually claim the prize, you had to not just produce the owl, but also produce your solutions to all of the riddles, to guard against someone figuring out more or less the right area and then just going over it with a metal detector or something like that. Or just
and that's going to be important for
chance.
another story we're going to look at, the story of Masquerade.
So supposedly, in order to have claimed the prize, someone or some group of people, quite possibly, will have at least had to have shown to Monsieur Becker that they have solved every one of these riddles and he has accepted their solution. And so that's the Golden Owl. It took, 1993? So that's 31 years it took them to find that, making it, from what I read, it's the second longest running treasure hunt of this kind. There was another one that took longer, but I can't remember which one that was. But when I read that, I thought, now this will be a good thing to talk about. This is like a news update because we've talked about this before, haven't we? And I looked back at our old notes because I remembered we did an episode about this, and we talked about a whole bunch of these hidden treasury things. And it turns out we did. The bonus episode that accompanied episode 272 was a whole look at a bunch of these treasure hunty type sort of conspiracies. Turned out the Golden Owl was not one of the ones we talked about originally.
No, we'd never even thought to locate the Golden Owl back in 2022.
No. So that means, though, that we can now move into the behind the conspiracy, the
back to the conspiracy.
Back to the conspiracy. Yep. That's exactly what I said. You'll edit out
how the sausage is made, people. This is how the sausage is made.
Fortunately for me, M will edit out that embarrassingly long gap where I tried to remember the word back.
I will not at all. In fact, actually, I will probably put the volume and the loudness up so high that it blasts everybody's ears. I might put echo in. Now, maybe even music to presage the era to come. I mean, I'm not going to do that because it would be a lot of work. But you can imagine a situation where you get this kind of foreboding tone as you get closer and closer to Josh not knowing the name of the segment we're doing in this podcast.
But nevertheless, we are doing it. It's back to the conspiracy. Here it is. Let's talk about the things that we talk about. And of course, because we talked about it in a bonus episode several years ago, you, our regular listeners, will not have heard this anyway, so it'll all be new anyway. So the first thing we talked about was the fear. Do you know why we talked about this? Was it just some? I cannot remember.
It was
the
a
exact
news
motivation.
story that one of us had come across at some point. I think. Well, yes, because so it must have been. It was an Ars Technica story, actually, from memory, which I had read on Ars Technica, and then was going, well, this seems like the kind of thing we like to talk about in the bonus episodes, because there was a period of time where we were doing art-related stories and kind of art forgeries, art history, art-related things, and this was about an artist producing a treasure hunt, and so it was a perfect fit for the bonus episodes at that time.
So would this have been the Fenn Treasure then?
It would have been the Fenn Treasure. So the Fenn Treasure was a treasure planted not in the fens, which are a kind of marsh, but in the Rocky Mountains, which are not a marsh at all. And this was due to the work of Forrest Fenn, who was
not a forest.
Nor a Fenn. So actually, the whole man's life is a lie. Neither a Forrest nor a Fenn, named for God knows what reason. But Forrest Fenn was a US Air Force major who, as we noted at the time, participated in the utterly unnecessary Vietnam War. And post coming back from service, ended up running an art gallery. He was diagnosed with what appeared to be terminal cancer in 1988, and he decided to start a kind of hidden treasure caper with the idea that he would create, like the hunt for the golden owl and Masquerade, which we'll talk about in just a minute, a book wherein he would leave clues for the location of a treasure, which, quite chillingly, according to his original plan, would also be where his grave would be located. So, yes, digging away, finding treasure. Oh, and here's a bit of a corpse on the side. What grim fun that would turn out to be. So he has cancer in 1988. He decides to plan his final resting place and make it into a fun treasure hunting caper at the same time. He then recovers from his seemingly terminal cancer, but he ends up writing the book, The Thrill of the Chase, a memoir, in which he still goes through on the caper itself. So he plants a cache, a treasure chest which contains gold nuggets, rare coins, jewelries, and gemstones, somewhere north of Santa Fe in New Mexico. And in the book, he has a poem which contains 9 clues about the exact whereabouts of this treasure. Josh, would you like to read this poem out?
I would. The poem goes, "As I have gone alone and dear, and with my treasures bold, I can keep my secret rare, and hint of riches new and old. Begin it where warm waters halt, and take it in the canyon down, not too far, but too far to walk, put in below the home of Brown. From there it's no place for the meek, the end is ever drawing nigh, there'll be no paddle up your creek, just heavy loads and water high. If you've been wise and found the blaze, look quickly down your quest to cease, but tarry scant with marvel gaze, just take the chest and go in peace. So why is it that I must go and leave my trove for all to seek? The answers I already know, I've done it tired and now I'm weak. So hear me all and listen good, your effort will be worth the cold. If you are brave and in the wood, I give you title to the gold."
So yes, this is a poem with 9 clues about the exact whereabouts of a treasure, worth at the time a cool $2 million US dollars. And if you're asking yourself, how does a retired Air Force major have access to $2 million US? Well, he owned a art gallery, thus the art connection that we used to go for in our bonus episodes, and that art gallery was bringing in around about 6 million a year. So 2 million isn't small change, but it is also just a third of an annual income. And if I had 6 million a year, and I then spent 2 million of that on an art caper, I'd still have 4 million a year to live off, and that would probably be fine. Although, admittedly, with the rising cost of living, I'd only be able to buy 1 or 2 houses a year back home at that rate.
Yes, yes, but nevertheless, I'd take it. You can give me $6 million a year.
I could
I'd be
live on
quite happy.
4 million a year with absolute ease. Absolute ease. Now, the treasure itself was contained in a bronze box. It was said to weigh about 10 kgs. Because it weighed so much, Fenn ended up kind of delivering items to the location over a period of time. And when the book came out, 5 people died. Josh, what happened there?
Well, nothing sinister, unfortunately. More just tragic. Like we say, it was in a mountainous area north of Santa Fe, and if you saw in the poem there, he talks about going through waters, going down a canyon, no place for the meek, going up high, paddling. So it was obviously in fairly sort of treacherous terrain in some places. So basically 5 people died, what just by all accounts were accidental deaths out in the wilderness looking for this stuff. But apparently that was enough for both the authorities and Mr. Fenn's family members to say, can you actually stop the hunt, please? People are dying. Can we call it all to put an end to it, perhaps? Also,
which
apparently
didn't happen.
No. People were also arrested for damaging property in aid of the search. What was the one about put in below the home of Brown. I don't know if a Brown family's house ended up getting broken into, but Mr. Fenn's house apparently got broken into at one point by someone who thought maybe it was all a cunning trick, and the treasure was actually in his place under their very noses all along, or something.
Well, yes, and actually that's going to be interesting when we look into the people who claim to have found the treasure, because the treasure was found back on June 6th in 2020, and Fenn wrote on his personal blog, "It was under a canopy of stars in the lush forested vegetation of the Rocky Mountains, and had not moved from the spot where I hid it more than 10 years ago. I do not know the person who found it, but the poem in my book led him to the precise spot. I congratulate the thousands of people who participated in the search and hope they will continue to be drawn by the promise of other discoveries. So the search is over. Look for more information and photos in the coming days." And indeed, photos were taken of the cache to kind of prove the existence, because there had always been a worry that the treasure did not exist at all. Now, initially, the finder wanted to remain anonymous, and by the time we reported this back in the bonus episode for episode 272, the identity of the treasure finder was not known at that time. And because the finder wanted to remain anonymous, people went, "Oh, it's just another part of the hoax. There was no treasure," or Finn's just trying to get away from all of the claims of people trying to locate it by preemptively saying it has been located. So, for example, Chris and Christopher Hurst claimed that they had found the treasure first, but they claimed that the treasure itself was a journey and not a physical item at all. So they didn't deny that there was a treasure, but they claimed that Fenn had kept the treasure in a casket in a bank vault the entire time, and that's because they claimed, based upon the poem, that they had located the price location using maps the day before the treasure was announced. So they said, "Look, we located it on a map, and we told you about that, whilst you didn't accept that we had found it by locating it on a map and told us to keep looking."
Yes, and then the next day he said, "It's been found. Game over."
Yeah.
So yeah. So Tony Dokapil, anchor for CBS This Morning, he at the time apparently said it was a hoax because he said that he had been told by Mr. Fenn that he planned to be buried with the treasure, which I don't
was
know.
the original plan.
Yeah, was he
It
just
the
getting
original
confused about the original plan, or did he think that was what was actually going on?
Or quite possibly Fenn had told people at the time, "Look, if nobody finds the treasure, then my original plan, which is to be buried with it, is going to go ahead."
So yes, I don't know if that necessarily means anything. But eventually, now when he said there in his statement, "I do not know the person who found it," I assume what he meant is this person wasn't an acquaintance of mine or anything. They are a complete stranger. There's no connection that they could have exploited to have found it. They found it on their own, rather than the identity of the person who found it is a mystery even to me, because there were eventually images that he posted, Mr. Fenn posted, and that you'd think that would settle it. He said, "Look, here's the cache, here's the treasure. It's been found. It's no longer underground, or I assume it was buried in Santa Fe." But that wasn't enough for some people.
Well, so no, apparently the treasure was sitting out in the open.
Oh,
It says it was in such a distant location in the Rocky Mountains that the chance of someone stumbling across it would be rather low.
right. But nevertheless, having published these pictures, still some people thought maybe the whole thing was actually a scam. So later in 2020, a guy called Jack Stoof, who was a medical student
Is
from
it
Michigan.
Stoof or Staff?
UEF. If it's German, it's
Because the only reason I'm saying Staff is that the game The Seventh Guest, the villain in that is Staff, and it's spelt the same way.
Oh, maybe it is. Maybe it is Jack Staff. I'm afraid I don't know. But he's a medical student from Michigan, and he revealed that he was the one who had found Fenn's treasure chest.
Or chest. Both,
Or
actually. Both the
could be
chest
neither.
and the chest were found by Jack Staff or Stoof.
But there was that was not the end of it. Apparently, in July of 2021, a French treasure hunter, those wily French again, named Bruno Raffos, he sued him, filed a 10 million.
So why are you saying those wily? Oh, the wily French again with respect to the first story,
the first
as
story,
opposed to other French people in this
not in this particular story.
Yeah, okay, all right.
He filed a lawsuit against Fenn's estate. According to his complaint, Mr. Raffos had determined that the treasure was hidden in southwestern Colorado, and had said, as the two. As Chris and Christopher Hurst, apparently he'd got in touch and said, "I know where it is. I'm going to go and find it." His plans were delayed by COVID. This is we're in 2020 now, so the COVID-19 pandemic was in full swing. And apparently, after he'd said that, Fenn announced that the treasure had been found in Wyoming. And so Monsieur Raffos has contended that Fenn took advantage of the delay to move the chest from Colorado to Wyoming. And he points out that apparently Mr. Staff or whatever no one has ever actually said, "Here's the precise location where I found it." It's somebody this guy said, "I found it," and Fenn said, "Yep, he sure did," but nobody said it. But the suit was dismissed on July 16th, 2021. And nothing more seems to have come of that. I assume that it talks about he's suing Fenn's estate and that nothing had been specified, that the final location hadn't been specified by Fenn's relatives. I assume Mr. Fenn had died by this point.
I actually don't know.
I have not read a death notice there. But so as far as we know, it's done. It was found. There was some disagreement over it, but a guy says he found it. Mr. Fenn said, "Yep, he sure did." And that, as far as we know, is that.
Yes, and this is, I mean, what's interesting about this particular legal case is the claim of conspiracy here, that having alerted Fenn that I've located the treasure, but I have not found it in a technical sense of having touched it, is the claim that Fenn and presumably associates, because it's a 10 kg cache of treasure, then decided to move the treasure to a new location, presumably to allow this Jack Stoof or Staff to find it in his stead instead. So there is a claim here. It's a claim of moving the treasure from one location to another, which is quite fascinating about this.
Yes, but again, those claims appear to have come to nothing, at least in a legal sense, and there doesn't appear to be anything more to say. So shall we move on to the Masquerade?
Indeed. Masquerade.
This seems to have been the one that started, maybe not started at all, but it was definitely the inspiration for the hunt for the Golden Owl and possibly others. This is the same thing, essentially. This is back in 1979. And this was in England now. So a man called Kit Williams published a picture book, and as in the on the trail of the Golden Owl, it was a treasure hunt for, in this case, a jeweled rabbit, or rather a hare, I suppose. They're not the same, are they?
They are not the same at all. You don't confuse your hares with your rabbits. I mean, I don't think they can even interbreed.
Possibly not, no. But I do not know my what's the word for rabbits? There is a word for it.
So it's the Latin genus is Iepure.
No, okay, that's not a word I know.
Which is also the Romanian word for rabbit as well.
Yeah,
Ipure, something like that. Yeah,
that'll do. It's not about them anyway. It's about a hunt for a golden statue of one. So yeah, this book, this seems to be what kicked things off, what inspired the various other cases of this. It was a picture book. It had 15 paintings about a character called Jack Hare, who was a hare, carrying a treasure from the moon to the sun, and he loses the treasure en route, and so you, the reader, are then tasked with finding it. It was placed in a ceramic casket, both for protection and apparently to make it harder to find with a metal detector. It was buried, as it turns out, in Ampthill Park in Bedfordshire. And this was, unlike these other ones, it was very specifically, you didn't have to go there and dig it up. You could just announce you could send the guy a letter and say, I've worked it out, here's the location, and that would be good enough. The first person who was able to
Yes,
actually
because this is
say
a
to
case of a
them,
book that was published
"Mm,
worldwide, and it would be a very limiting factor to sell a book in South America and going, if you have located the treasure, please do travel to the UK to dig it up before claiming the cash prize.
yes, now things get a bit interesting here. The prize was found, and the first person who claimed it was a guy called Dougal Thompson, aka Ken Thomas. The pseudonym is possibly the first red flag. Now, Mr. Williams was a little bit suspicious when he claimed the prize. Said he knew exactly where it was, but he couldn't actually explain how he had got to that location based on the clues in the book. And it turned out that's because he hadn't. There were the first people who actually solved it were a pair of physics teachers called Mike Barker and John Rousseau. Now they actually went out. They were English, and they went to the location where they'd worked out where it was and had a good dig, but apparently didn't notice the casket. I assume it was a bit too small or something, and they just picked it up in a
Yeah, I'm not
spadeful and
quite
didn't
sure
notice in
how
the pile
big
of
the
dirt or
hair
something.
was,
Mm.
but you can imagine a situation where you dig, say, down 1 meter, and it turns out to be 1 meter, 1 millimeter deep. So you end up just gently scratching the top but not noticing it. Or you're digging so robustly that you kind of throw the casket over your shoulder without ever realizing it's there. But whatever happened, they digged in the right location. They would have found it had they seen the casket, but they gave up going, well, we dug there and there is no casket there, so I guess we didn't find it.
So instead, Mr. Thomas came along and grabbed it instead. But how did he know to go to that location? Had he solved the puzzle?
Well, no, because it turns out
No.
that Thompson's business partner, John Gard, was the boyfriend of Veronica Robertson, who was herself the former girlfriend of Kit Williams, who apparently had shared with her the location of the hair, but crucially, not the solution to the puzzle. So, what seems to have happened here was that Thompson or Thomas, depending on which name you want to use, was aware of the location, was kind of sitting on the location in order to claim the hair at some particular point, then became aware that Barker and Rousseau were in the process of accurately locating it, realized that they hadn't located it on their first attempt, and then went, oh, I better claim the prize now because otherwise in a few days' time it's not going to be mine to claim. And I don't need to explain how I found it. I just need to say exactly where it's located.
Yes. So what became of that then? What I assume he was then disqualified, and it was given to the two teachers, Mike Barker and John Rousseau. But I'm not
No, because I
actually.
believe the next story is actually predicated on selling the hair to fund the next prize.
Oh, I see. So right, okay. Well, then I shouldn't be jumping ahead. We could instead talk about the actual puzzle, which was all done. This one was all based on the pictures, from what I gather. So Wikipedia has a summary of how the puzzle went. So in each painting in the book, a line must be drawn from the depicted creature's left eye through the longest digit on its left hand and out to one of the letters in the page border. Then from the left eye through the longest digit on the left foot, the right eye through the longest digit on the right hand, and finally the right eye through the longest digit on the right foot. This is only done for eyes and digits that are visible in the painting. The letters indicated by these lines can be made to form words either by treating them as anagrams or by applying the sequence of animals and digits suggested by an Isaac Newton painting. Following this method revealed 15 words or short phrases, and once you had worked out all of the words and all the letters, you get the phrase, Catherine's long finger overshadows earth, buried yellow amulet midday points the hour in light of equinox. Look you! Sounds a little Welsh. Which then, if you take the first of all of those words, you get close by Ampthill. And so
I have to admit, this is. I mean, apart from the fact it's very a very elaborate, and also elaborate puzzle with respect to the visuals. the code you get at the end sounds like nonsense. So you can imagine a lot of people giving up at that point, going, well, this doesn't mean anything. You'd expect the sentence it produces to be something which is meaningful. This is nonsense. And then to then go on from the nonsense sentence, so I can't say any worse today. Sentence, nonsense sentence, nonsense sentence. You can then make the acrostic close by Amped Hill. So I imagine there were a lot of people who actually did solve the puzzle, but then went, this means nothing, and then, that was right after all.
Well, I mean, it is
Shucks.
fairly clever, because the acrostic that leads close by Emptill gives you the general location, but then the actual sentence itself does tell you the details. Like Catherine's long finger
Yeah,
overshadows
actually, no, I
Earth.
guess you're actually right about that.
So the actual location was that in Emptill Park, there's a monument to Catherine of Aragon, and the location of it was the spot that the tip of the monument's shadow touches at noon on the day of the March or September equinox. So it did sort of make
Very
sense.
clever, Josh. You've worked that out quite nicely. I rescind all of my comments about nonsense sentences.
All I had to do was read the text that
Josh,
Wikipedia
don't
wrote
reveal
in
how
book
the
form.
sausage is made.
Fine. Okay,
I was trying to make you look clever.
There's
And
no
now
sure.
you've made us both look like idiots.
Good.
Who are just reading Wikipedia entries.
I mean, that's not all we do, but that's some of what we do. But okay, so
80% of
yes,
what we do.
I jumped ahead. I made a faulty assumption about exactly what happened, because yes, Thompson and Guard had through fair means or through foul means. I think we've established fairly clearly through foul means had acquired the golden hair. What did they do with it next?
They created a video game. So the reason why we ended up talking about Masquerade was because I watched a video on Hareraiser. So Thompson and Guard, after Thompson takes purchase, authority, ownership of the golden hair, and because there's a bit of a scandal about, did he really discover it in the right way? I mean, there were BBC reports on the discovery of the hair and the scandal about, it looks like he didn't discover it in the right way. They kind of tried to mollify the crowds, going, look, we're going to give the hair away, and we're going to do it in the same way. Except this time, rather than a picture book, we are going to produce a game for 8-bit systems, so your Commodore 64, your Spectrums, your Sinclairs, your Ataris. And if you solve the computer games, plural, you will be able to locate the hair, and you can claim that hair for yourself. So they released 2 games, Hareraiser Prelude and Hareraiser Final. Interestingly enough, Prelude sold relatively well on the promise of you solve the game, you will win a golden hair. But because it was only half of the puzzles, about a year later, Hellraiser Hellraiser.
That would have been good.
Yeah, that would have been I'm gonna tear your hair apart. Hellraiser Final gets released, notably, only on a subset of the systems that Prelude was sold on. So you may have bought Prelude, solved the puzzles in it, or you probably haven't, as we'll get into in just a minute, and then discover that to be able to get the second half of the puzzle, you may have to own a completely different computer system. So the game didn't sell well. Part 2 only appears on a subset of those systems. Interestingly enough, the makers of the game, Hairsoft, also claim that an additional clue to the mystery had been revealed in Harrods by TV presenter Annika Rice, but it was never specified when that occurred, what she said, or even whether Annika Rice even knew she was giving a clue to the Hareraiser, I was about to say Hellraiser puzzle, was it's going to tear your soul apart.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, I would recommend look up the Stuart Ashen video on Hareraiser for the Norwich Gaming Festival, because it's pretty hard to describe Hareraiser. You need to see it in action for yourself. But if you take it that the Masquerade is a case of very, very elaborate artistic pieces where you have to draw careful lines between one part of the image to another to eventually solve an acrostic. Imagine trying to do that on 8-bit, mostly text-based graphics back in the 1980s. And you get something which appears to be an incomprehensible mess, to the point where many people think this was a scam from the outset, that the game is so deliberately obtuse and so bad for a reason in order to cover up the fact that there is no prize.
Yeah. So these guys, they've got the hair, but they know people think the way they got it is a little bit dodgy. So it certainly sounds like they've thought, well, okay, maybe we can't keep the hair. Maybe we're going to get in trouble if we do that. But maybe we can make money by selling a video game. It's almost like running a lottery or something by selling tickets to give it away or something like that. But maybe the whole thing was. But what we do know is that this game Hareraiser was never solved, if there ever was a solution in the first place. And the hair itself eventually was sold after Hairsoft went into liquidation.
And the thing which is of particular interest to gamers is that the game has been kind of decompiled, so you can now look at the source code. And many of the screens contain random factors. So people were going, well, look, maybe the moving images and the lights are meant to be some kind of code. Turns out most of them are random, which does indicate that either the puzzle, like Masquerade or the Golden Owl and things like that, has some distracting elements in it, or it was designed to look as if it was meaningful when it really, really wasn't.
Yeah. Now, one that did end up delivering was Christopher Monckton's Eternity Puzzle. It's another one
we haven't talked about Christopher Monckton in a long time.
No.
But Christopher Monckton, or Lord Monckton, is one of the, and I'm going to say this advisedly with scare quotes, preeminent figures in the climate change denial industry. So he goes around the world talking about how climate change isn't real, presenting himself as a member of the House of Lords in the United Kingdom, despite the fact that even though he is a lord, he is not a member of the House of Lords. He's not a member of Britain's upper chamber.
Yes, but nevertheless, another thing he did when he wasn't denying climate change was make this puzzle. It was we should say at the front, Em got me it as a Christmas present, or was it you got me the second one?
I got you the sequel.
2,
yeah, because there are two. There's not just one Eternity, Josh.
Yeah.
There's a sequel to the everlastingness of all creation, Eternity 2.
Yes, I could not solve it, but to be fair, I didn't actually try particularly hard because, among other things, this puzzle, if you solve the first person to solve it, would win a prize, but that had already been done quite some time ago. But this particular puzzle, it was just a not exactly a jigsaw, but you had a whole bunch of little triangles, not equilateral triangles, 30, 60, 90 triangles that all had to, they all had to fit together. They had different colours. The colours had to match up. There was apparently only one possible combination of all 209 shapes that could go together in such a way that all the colours would match up and things like that. So it's, from the sounds of things, it was something where you'd have to have sort of take a mathematical approach to it, because simply putting them in at random, you'd be doing it for a million years before you'd tried all the different combinations.
Well, according to Monckton and his compatriots, one estimate made at the time stated the puzzle had 10,500 possible attempts at a solution, and it would take longer than the lifetime of the universe to calculate all of them, even if you had a million.
Okay, well there you go. It was even more than that. Yes, essentially impossible to solve at random. So you had to take some sort of a systematic approach. He said the prize was £1 million, and which would go to anyone who was able to solve it within 4 years. So there was a time limit. The puzzle, 50,000 copies of the puzzle were sold worldwide at £35 each. So assuming they all sold, he made his money back, I guess.
Yeah, except if you're selling them at £35 each, production costs, shipping
I
costs,
suppose maybe he didn't. I don't know. He's a
storage
lord.
costs.
He's got more money than he knows
but
what to do.
you're
with.
probably probably making closer to £5 per copy than £35 per copy.
Yeah. At any rate, it was solved. It was solved in under a year. And apparently, I just said he had more money than he knows what to do with. Apparently, he had to sell his house to pay out on the amount. Although he then later claimed that was a PR. Did he claim that selling the house was a PR stunt, or the paying out in the first place was a PR stunt?
I think the selling the house,
right.
he claimed retrospectively,
he
was
never
a PR
actually
stunt.
had to do that. I don't know, who knows. And so then he designed the new puzzle, Eternity 2.
The one that I gave you,
the one that
Eternity
you gave
2.
me. Which actually, yes, Eternity was sold. Eternity 2 never was sold, so maybe I should have tried her.
No, but the cash prize has also expired.
Well, yes,
it had
that
a
one
similar
had a time limit. Yeah,
I think in this case 5 years, and yes, it was never solved. But Josh has a copy, and just for the intellectual stimulation, we all think that Josh should be solving that puzzle right. He should be devoting his life to solving that puzzle right now.
I'm not sure if we still have it, to be honest. I think it might have been a casualty of the house getting flooded and
A
rearranging
likely
everything
story.
else.
You tried to solve it and was so annoyed by your inability to solve a simple puzzle like Eternity 2 that you force-fed it to a passing child.
I did. Yeah.
Swallow these polydrafters, child. Swallow them all. Swallow them now.
I couldn't handle the shame. Do we want to do one more?
But you will force-feed a board game to a child.
Oh yeah, there's no shame in that. Do we want to do the last one? We've got it on the list.
Why not?
I suppose we might as well. It involves Pink Floyd. So I mean,
well, except it doesn't.
Except it doesn't. It sort of tangentially involves Pink Floyd. So remember, the Masquerade was 1979. The Golden Owl was 1993. So around this time, the craze, I guess, was still in effect. In 1994, Pink Floyd released an album called The Division Bell, and supposedly there was this riddle, called the so-called Publius Enigma. Publius, I don't know. Is that Latin?
Publius Enigma.
Publius Enigma was this riddle that was apparently released in connection with the release of the album, and apparently anyone who solved the riddle would get a reward. Now, Pink Floyd, the band, was not actually involved with this. So do you know how it came out in the first place?
Well, a message was posted to Usenet, which was the message boards of the day back in the early to mid 90s. And the message went, "My friends, you have heard the message Pink Floyd has delivered, but have you listened? Perhaps I can be your guide, but I will not solve the enigma for you. All of you must open your minds and communicate with each other, as this is the only way the answers can be revealed. I may help you, but only if obstacles arise. Listen, read, think, communicate. If I don't promise you the answers, would you go? Publius." And so this was posted on Usenet. When Pink Floyd was asked what the hell's going on here, their response was, "We have no idea whatsoever, but we think EMI, our label, is doing some kind of advertising thing." So they went, "Look, whatever this is, someone in management is running this." So yes, it is assumed that EMI, their label, were behind some kind of viral marketing for the Division Bell.
Before viral marketing even really existed.
Well, I mean, it is. I mean, oddly enough, 1994 is early internet era.
It's early internet, but the concept of going viral, I don't know if that existed yet. But nevertheless, that's basically what it was.
As we know, viruses weren't invented until the advent of the COVID-19 pandemic, when the evil medical establishment invented viruses to enable lockdowns to destroy humanity.
But so that first message was fairly cryptic. There was a further message later that said, "As some of you have suspected, the Division Bell is not like its predecessors, although
I want to step in there. They are right. The Division Bell had a little LED that blinked So it wasn't like its predecessors. Previous Pink Floyd albums did not have
The
LEDs.
blinking LED, no, so that's a
Yeah.
true fact. Anyway, although all great music is subject to multiple interpretations, in this case there is a central purpose and a designed solution. For the ingenious person or group of persons who recognises this, and where the information points to, a unique prize has been secreted. How and where? The division bell. Listen again, look again, as your thoughts will steer you. Lead the blind while I steered out the steel in your eyes. Lyrics, artwork, and music will take you there. And then apparently on the 18th of July in 1994, there were patterns in the lights on the front of the stage at the Pink Floyd concert in East Rutherford, which briefly spelled out the words Enigma Publius, suggesting that yes, this was actually something to do with the Pink Floyd and their new album, even if the band themselves wasn't directly involved in it.
Although possibly by this point in time, they may have been playing along.
Well, yes, you never know. But I mean, they're making it sound like there are actually clues hidden in the album itself, or on the disc, or in the lyrics, artwork, and music. But we don't know because it's never been solved.
No, so we don't know what the prize was. We don't know what the clues are meant to point towards. We don't even know whether there were clues in the album itself. It may well have just been an attempt to drum up interest in the Division Bell, because I think from memory, when the Division Bell came out, it was neither well reviewed, nor did people think, oh, great, a new album by Pink Floyd. I think they more went, oh, great, a new album by Pink Floyd.
Are they still around? Yes. Yes, so there you go. That's a whole bunch of interesting treasure hunty puzzles, which have a conspiratorial angle to them. And it's a nice break from...
This has not been a good day for words, has it? A conspiratorial angle. I've had sibilants rather than sentences. What's going wrong with this podcast? Why do we no longer have command of our lingua franca? And why isn't this podcast in French?
I don't really speak very much of it, and you don't at all, as far as I'm aware. So
Parlez-vous anglais?
Oui, je parle.
You want to oui on chaperon? Is that what you're trying to say?
I choose not to answer that question. But no, I think it's probably just because we spent the last 3 episodes delving into academic talk on conspiracy theories, and actually having been presented with some actual conspiracies that are not in any way sinister, unless you think of the possible scamminess of some of the people's actions. Maybe our brains are just rejecting it. Maybe that's the problem.
Interesting.
Well, before we devolve any further, I think we should bring this episode to a close.
No. We are devolving much further in the bonus episode.
Oh yeah, we'll be doing that. But in the main episode, let's halt our devolution and talk no more about secret treasure hunts and the enigmas behind them. And instead say, hey, why don't you go listen to our bonus episode if you're one of our patrons, where we'll probably do another bit of a classic. Go have a look at what old Alex Jones and David Icke are up to. Because it's been a while since we checked in.
Yes, it has been fair, a while. And
it's been more and more depressing every time we do, but who knows? There'll be something. That's all I can say.
But the thing is, this might be one of the last times we can go to Alex Jones, because of course his business is up for sale next month. So if the business gets sold to Alex Jones supporters, we can continue to think of InfoWars and Prison Planet as being a continuation of his legacy. But if it's sold to people who don't like Alex Jones, that website may just disappear or get repurposed, and it will be interesting to see whether Alex Jones can reincarnate elsewhere.
Yeah, that's been the assumption that I've heard, that especially because he's got some stuff's in his father's name and some stuff's in his brother-in-law's name or something like that now. So the assumption is that whatever happens, he'll be able to set up a new platform, and if that gets canned, he can set up another one and so on. But yes, as for InfoWars itself, we'll just have to wait and see. This could well be our last chance. So if you want to hear us take what is potentially our last look at InfoWars, become a patron, and then you will listen to it as a bonus episode. You'll be unable to help yourself. It'll just happen and you won't even know what's going on, because that's how our bonus episodes work.
Because as we know, Josh likes to force the bonus episodes down the throats of patrons, even though they are the loveliest, the greatest, and the best people.
Oh, I don't even
Josh,
have to
for some
anymore.
reason,
That's-
has a
they
vendetta
just-
against them.
The bonus episodes now just have such a compelling property that people are forced to ingest them against their will, essentially.
Yeah, but
It's
by
dark
how?
alchemy we're performing
How are they?
now.
If they're compelling, how are they forced? If they're compelling, people would be compelled under their own nature to listen. But you're saying they're being forced to listen, which means they're not really compelling other than by threat of violence. And Josh,
They're
if not
forcefully
you,
compelling.
who is threatening them with violence?
The nature of podcasting itself, the essence, the spirit of podcasting
So some kind of
compels you.
So some kind of platonic form of the podcaster arrives in people's homes and then forces them to put on headphones or listen to it out loud, but forces them to press the play button on our patron bonus episode.
That is exactly what happens, and it could happen to you. All you need to do is go to patreon.com and look for the Podcaster's Guide to the Conspiracy and sign yourself up.
If you want to experience the platonic ideal of a podcaster in your home, why not become a patron of the podcast?
Non-corporeal manifestations of podcasting itself can be yours.
as long as you give us $1 or more a month.
Yep. Well, I think we've sold that pretty well. We can just sit back and wait for the patron sign
For
ups.
all the gold people are going to send us to roll in.
This has possibly been our most lucrative episode ever.
Yeah, that useless gold that nobody wants that we are taking off people's hands.
So we'll sit back and count the money and leave you about your business while we record a bonus episode. So it just remains for me, I guess, to say goodbye, which is not an anagram or an acronym or a secret clue to anything, as far as you know.
Except that if you take the O and put it in front of the G, and you take the Y and put it after the E, and then you transpose by turning the word upside down and then inverting it by 90 degrees, mirroring the image, and then imposing it over the face of Donald Trump, and then you turn Donald Trump's face inside out, then you get a clue to what's happening in 2 weeks' time.
I can neither confirm nor deny.
Goodbye.
You've been listening to the Podcaster's Guide to the Conspiracy, hosted by Josh Addison and M. Dentith. If you'd like to help support us, please find details of our pledge drive at either Patreon or Podbean. If you'd like to get in contact with us, email us at podcastconspiracy@gmail.com.
Marty, we gotta go back to the conspiracy.